Have you ever witnessed a survival challenge? In the wild, as thrilling as this? Two strangers, one man and one woman, will emulate Adam and Eve in a 21-day survival challenge in nature. If they succeed, not only can they succeed in planting trees, they will also receive a $100,000 prize. Would you dare to take on the challenge? In northern Argentina, there is a river stretching hundreds of kilometers called the Paran. This river flows through vast grasslands, famous and teeming with mosquitoes that annoy all mammals. Here, these blood-sucking insects also carry dangerous viruses, like dengue fever and the Zika virus. In spring, daytime temperatures continuously rise, but at night, it feels cold and damp. In summer, humid air from the tropics and cold air from the Andes combine to create extreme weather patterns. In these water-filled forests, predatory animals like jaguars and snakes still exist. Cobras, with just one bite, can end a life. Underwater, thousands of piranhas are ready to attack any intruder. The guy with long hair like he uses Sunsilk shampoo is named Patrick. 40 years old, he is an outdoor equipment tester. His daily job is to help companies test hiking shoes, backpacks, sleeping bags, and camping tents. As a professional extreme equipment tester, Patrick loves long-distance hiking and often lives in harsh environments. The only time he returns to civilization is to resupply. With confidence, he claims that no matter where he's thrown, no matter how harsh the environment, he can easily survive. Mallory, 38 years old, from Texas, is a full-time nurse and outdoor survival trainer. In the wilderness, she doesn't like swallows but loves guns, and has a peculiar hobby of cooking, turning her hunting spoils into delicious meals. Her strong personality makes many guys hesitant, which is why she's still single, but she always believes that her other half will come to her with colorful clouds. After a long, powerful truck delivered both of them to the location, it took their clothes. Then the two met in the bushes. Upon meeting, Patrick was shy, saying it was a normal reaction, while Mallory laughed loudly. After briefly asking about each other, they began checking their survival tools that they brought along, including fishing line, a small knife, and a stainless steel pot provided by the program, along with a lighter. They studied the map to locate water sources and immediately set off. On the way, the two single people walked and discussed topics about life after marriage. After walking for over 3 hours, they finally reached the river bank. Patrick suggested camping by the river, but Mallory didn't want to be swept away by water. Seeing the weather changing, they went under a large tree to discuss setting up camp. Although Patrick wasn't satisfied with the spot, he decided to respect Mallory's idea. They began setting up the camp framework, but during that time, Patrick accidentally cut off a finger. Though it was getting dark, he didn't care much and continued working hurriedly. More concerning was when Mallory finished gathering materials for their survival. A loud thunderclap scared her. They tried multiple times, but still couldn't start a fire, refusing to give up. They kept working until late at night. Finally, they succeeded in creating a fire amid heavy rain. However, terrible mosquitoes bothered them all night, keeping them from sleeping. The next morning, their bodies were covered in mosquito bites, while the campfire was extinguished by heavy rain. Additionally, because the camp wasn't fully set up, their mood became very bad. The overnight rain made their lives even harder. Patrick, both thirsty and hungry, decided to look for some plants to quench his thirst. They ventured deep into the forest, deliberately cutting branches to avoid getting lost. They marked their path with many branches. But even so, both got lost. They were like headless flies, wandering in different directions. Finally, they found a patch of palm trees. However, the mosquitoes continued to attack them relentlessly. After gathering materials at the camp, they ate all the wild vegetables they collected. After lunch, they continued trying to survive. But after a tiring morning, they still couldn't start a fire. They tinkered for nearly 2 hours, but still failed. Disappointed, Patrick went deeper into the forest to find more materials for kindling. Soon after, he found some dry palm and continued trying to start a fire. Finally, at night, they succeeded in starting a fire. That night, they cooked the wild vegetables they had gathered and ate to get by. Because it was cold, they didn't dare sleep and had to keep adding firewood to keep the fire from going out. On the third morning, after a short nap, Patrick, while fixing the camp, caught a small worm. He decided to use it as fishing bait. Unable to leave the fire, Patrick stayed at camp to tend the fire, while Mallory went to the river to fish. Soon after, the bait was eaten, but she didn't catch any fish. In disappointment, Mallory caught a small, clever fish. She hung it on the hook to continue fishing. However, the result was still an empty hook. Her mood sank very low. At night, both had to stay up again. On the 5th day, they only ate a few wild vegetables. Patrick suggested conserving energy and trying to survive the 3 weeks, while Mallory believed everyone has different body fat ratios, and if they followed Patrick's plan, the only result would be him being carried out on a stretcher. After catching a grasshopper by the river, she started fishing. Luckily, this time, she caught a piranha. Brought it back to camp, cleaned it, and grilled it over the fire. While the fish was grilling, she ran back to the river and caught another one. When both fish were grilled, they shared the grilled fish meal. On the 7th day, Patrick, after tasting some success, went into the forest alone to find bait. After over 2 hours of effort, he caught some ant larvae and brought them to the river, imitating Mallory, to fish. Soon after, he caught a few rockfish, and at dusk, he returned to camp to eat another grilled fish meal. However, at night, because he was focused on fishing, Patrick forgot to gather firewood, nearly letting the fire go out. He had to hurriedly search for firewood in the dark. On the 9th day, despite staying near the fire, they were still freezing cold. Mallory suggested reinforcing the shelter, but Patrick believed they wouldn't feel cold if they ate enough. Despite saying that, he still went to gather leaves to improve the camp. On the 10th day, while gathering firewood, Mallory stumbled upon a large lizard and hurriedly returned to camp to make a trap for the lizard. After completing the trap, she used piranha entrails as bait. The advantage of this circular trap is that once the lizard gets caught, it's hard for it to escape. Meanwhile, Patrick was at camp tending the fire, hurriedly gathering firewood to keep warm. Mallory suggested checking the trap together, but Patrick refused, saying he didn't want to go because he had no time. On the morning of the 11th day, Mallory checked the trap and found signs of animals, but they had escaped. Returning to camp, she was upset and told Patrick she had lost a fishing hook. Patrick, who had been idle, suggested a hibernation method, because he always felt Mallory was doing useless things. The two had a heated argument, and finally parted ways. In displeasure. Patrick's mood was very bad. He ran to the river to fish, but still caught nothing. On the 11th day of the survival challenge, after the argument, Patrick went alone to the river to fish, but caught no fish, and even broke the fishing line. The 2 fishing hooks they brought from the start were gone, meaning they lost their only food source. Their morale plummeted as a result. On the 12th day, unable to fish anymore, Patrick started thinking of other food sources. When he asked Mallory if she had any plans, her only response was that she wanted to drink water. Seeing Mallory's bad mood and fearing she might give up, Patrick quickly comforted her. After Mallory vented all her negative emotions, her mood gradually improved. In the afternoon, both set out to find food. They wandered and found a long dead rat. Patrick quickly came up with an idea, deciding to use the fishing line to tie the rat and fish, since piranhas have sharp teeth. Patrick planned to wait until the fish ate the rat, and quickly pull them out of the water. After preparing, he threw the rat's tail into the water to test. On the other side, also began fixing the hunting trap she had made. Though it wasn't very effective, she didn't believe in Patrick's odd fishing method. In the end, Mallory spent half a day digging a large pit in the ground, covering it with leaves and waiting for prey. Patrick swung his fishing rod all afternoon, but still caught nothing. On the 13th day, giving up on fishing, Patrick saw a lizard and quietly found its burrow. He hurriedly returned to camp with fire to smoke the lizard out. However, he smoked from morning to afternoon and still didn't see the lizard. On the 14th day, both, due to lack of energy, started feeling muscle fatigue. In the afternoon, Patrick, so hungry he felt dizzy, could barely stand. But he still went out to find food. Luckily, he didn't go far before finding a huge beehive. Seeing it full of protein, he immediately felt excited, and though his mind wasn't clear, he thought of countless ways to get honey from the hive. After preparing the tools, they placed them under the tree and started smoking, though they knew they could be attacked by bees at any moment. When they felt the hive was smoked enough, they began climbing the tree and taking the hive down with bare hands. No doubt, his fingers were stung a few times. Afterward, Patrick sucked the venom out of his body. Back at camp, they shared a small piece of the hive. Patrick, squeezing his fingers, said to himself that even breaking his hand was worth it. However, the joy was short-lived. Just after eating, they faced heavy rain again, and strong winds at night, leaving both soaked. On the 15th day, after not sleeping all night, they began gathering wood to keep the fire going, because another big rain would be unbearable. On the 16th day, after 2 days without food, they started searching for food again. Returned to the beehive and thought of ways to get more honey. This time, she didn't use smoke but directly used a torch to burn the hive. Then she used a stick to collect a lot of honey and brought it back to share. On the 18th day, Mallory checked the traps set days earlier, but still found nothing. Finally, the 20th day arrived. Seeing victory near, both suddenly felt anxious. Patrick, to reach the evacuation point smoothly, went back to the beehive to get more honey. But the tree hollow was completely empty. Returning to camp to rest, He saw the lizard they still hadn't caught and immediately chased it, but ultimately let it escape. On the final day, the pair painted their faces like striped cats and began preparing to evacuate. The map showed they had to go upstream along the Porteno River. About 8 kilometers. Throughout the journey, they faced countless dangers and had to pass through areas with venomous snakes and jaguars. Finally, they reached an open area where a tractor was waiting. The rough road made travel extremely difficult for their weakened condition. Even more frightening, they found black jaguar tracks nearby, causing them great worry. Finally, after crossing a river full of piranhas, they reached the evacuation point and saw a small yacht waiting for them. Patrick and Mallory successfully completed the 21-day survival challenge. During the grueling 3 weeks, Mallory lost 13 kilograms and Patrick lost 18 kilograms. In the Zianalupuni region of South America, during the rainy season, rainfall can reach up to 330 millimeters per month, causing the area to be flooded with raging rivers. On the only Kuza mountain range, there are countless steep cliffs and dense forests, surrounded by vast, desolate grasslands. During the rainy season, newly hatched insects are the biggest nuisance, including dangerous disease-carrying species like mosquitoes carrying bacteria that can cause month-long ulcers with one bite. More seriously, their bites can lead to nervous system damage, or even leave someone bedridden. Not only that, venomous centipedes on the ground are also a major danger. The most terrifying are leopards, the fastest animals with bodies nearly 2 meters long, capable of easily taking down animals 4 times their size. Dr. Janice, 37 years old, a team doctor, has participated in rescue missions for survival challenges for 40 days in the forests of Louisiana and Peru. Though a doctor, she never neglects sports. Having competed in 3 marathons and obstacle course races, and even more extreme competitions, she joined this program to prove that doctors are truly stronger than outdoor survival experts. Victor, 48 years old, also an emergency doctor, has participated into survival challenges of 40 days and 2 21-day challenges. He's been passionate about outdoor sports since youth because in the past, he was a sniper and went through countless survival challenges. For experts, his goal in this challenge is simply to prove he can still do it. After a dark tractor delivered them to the area, it took their clothes. Then the 2 doctors met in the wilderness. Victor couldn't contain his excitement when meeting his new partner. Speaking incoherently, but don't mind him. After learning the other was a military doctor, they began discussing sales topics. After exchanging personal information, they started checking their survival tools that they brought, including rope, a small knife, a stainless steel pot provided by the program, and a lighter. After studying the map, they decided to cross the grasslands and camp at the foot of the mountain. On the way, Victor kept boasting about his strength, making Janice impatient. She said if he was truly strong, he should make the next 3 weeks easier for her. In the afternoon, when they reached a large rock in the triangular area, they immediately began preparing for survival. Though the rock crevice could serve as a temporary shelter, they couldn't survive without staying there. Luckily, survival wasn't too difficult. After starting a fire, Victor ran to the swamp and boiled it over the fire. At night, countless mosquitoes began attacking them, preventing them from sleeping. Even worse, A storm came at midnight with thunder and heavy rain. They could only sit in a narrow mountain crevice all night. The next morning, the sudden rain completely extinguished their fire. Because the crevice was too narrow, they continued searching for a new campsite. After the rain, the mosquitoes became even more aggressive, constantly attacking them. They wandered in circles and finally found a large rock and unexpectedly discovered a cave. Victor, not too bright, immediately thought of a new plan to set up camp. However, this time they weren't as lucky as before. After many attempts, they still failed to start a fire. At night, they were tormented by mosquitoes to an unbearable degree. On the third day, Janice's body was covered in bite wounds. And worse, many blood-sucking insects couldn't be driven away. Victor, to quickly escape these annoying insects, finally succeeded in starting a fire. At night, with the fire burning, they finally had time to do other things. On the fourth day, Janice's bite wounds became increasingly severe. She had to consume some protein to avoid infection. Victor made a trap under a large tree to catch small animals. On the fifth day, it rained again. Janice, bitten all over, began sobbing. Victor, helpless, could only comfort and encourage her, unable to do more. This odd couple continued the survival challenge in the wild forest. On the sixth day, when Janice couldn't bear the bites anymore, she called the program and said she didn't want to continue. As a doctor, she now needed others to check and care for her, which made her very uncomfortable. After a doctor examined Janice's body, she was given some anti-allergy medication. Victor, to convince Janice to continue, hurriedly checked his rope trap, but caught nothing. On the eighth day, Victor found a frog, roasted it on a branch, and ate it. On the ninth day, they began discussing what to eat. Though Janice was very weak, she persisted in going out to find food. Not to be outdone, Victor also set up more lizard traps around the camp. Because he thought Janice wasn't good at hunting, Janice hurriedly made a fishing net and cast it into the water. On the 11th day, Victor checked Janice's fish trap but found nothing. In despair, he saw a large beehive, though these bees had no stingers. If provoked, they would bite fiercely. Victor, near starvation, didn't care about that, and wildly hit the hive with a stick. As a result, he was bitten on the spot. The bees weren't picky about where they bit, even attacking Victor's sensitive areas. Both couldn't stand and had to crawl back to camp. On the 15th day, Victor, 65 years old, began having heart rhythm issues due to hunger. Both being doctors, they could only check each other's bodies. After that, Victor gathered branches and made a bow and arrow. After finishing, he hurriedly went out to try his luck. However, the tool he made was ineffective and yielded nothing. On the 17th day, Janice couldn't stand up due to hunger. Victor worried that if they didn't find food, both would end up dead. He went out to hunt but still found nothing. On the 19th day, exhausted but still trying, Victor spotted a large turtle in desperation. In their near-hopeless situation, they joyfully hugged each other. They immediately cleaned and cooked the turtle in the pot, eating a turtle soup meal. On the final day, they planned their departure with the map. To reach the rescue point, they had to cross 4 kilometers of flooded fields. deep drainage ditches, and dangerous channels. For them now, this was extremely dangerous. Luckily, the evacuation went smoothly. After crossing a raging river, they continued for another 2 hours and finally reached the rescue point. They boarded the waiting tractor to be taken away. Janice and Victor successfully completed the 21-day survival challenge. During the tough 3 weeks, Victor lost 12 kilograms and Janice lost 13 kilograms. If you and this girl were thrown into a dangerous wilderness, full of threats, without food, water, or even clothes, and had to survive for 21 days. If successful, you'd win $100,000, but if you fail, you'll be taken away with a hospital bill. Would you dare take the challenge? Lisa, 34 years old, is a pediatrician with an outgoing personality. Not only is she sociable, but she also loves grilling meat and camping in parks, due to her frequent work in the air. She's excellent at handling emergencies. When asked about her partner, she bluntly said if they had an 8-pack, that'd be perfect. Tom, 34 years old, is a wilderness survival trainer. He claims the number of girls he's trained is countless. Whether it's archery or trapping, they're all his specialties. He also often ventures alone into pristine forests to test his survival skills. With a somewhat solitary personality, he's often avoided by others. So, regarding his partner, as long as they don't run away within an hour, it's not too important. At a misty mountain in Argentina, South America, this place is enduring a fierce rainstorm. Rainfall in a few days equals more than half a year's total floodwaters with nowhere to go 'cause flash floods. At the same time, temperatures drop sharply due to relentless rain. Such low temperatures can put participants at risk of hypothermia. Not only that, heavy rain also displaces many small animals, forcing them to deal with venomous insects and deadly snakes attacking suddenly. An old off-road vehicle from a junkyard carried the two to the location in heavy rain and took their clothes. Right after, they met in the pouring rain in an open area. Upon meeting, Tom said it's just a normal reaction, don't mind. Lisa didn't care, saying it's too cold. After that, they quickly moved. After checking the map and determining direction, they stumbled along until the afternoon when they found an open area. Tom immediately suggested setting up camp there, not wanting to walk further. The place was too dangerous and disagreed. After some discussion, she reluctantly agreed. Then they argued about how to set up the camp, which annoyed Tom. He chopped wood carelessly and accidentally cut his wrist. As it got dark, he only used leaves to temporarily bandage the wound, and continued working. At dusk, he began gathering kindling to start a fire, but Lisa thought starting a fire in heavy rain was impossible. The result was obvious. Despite trying until they were out of breath, Tom's fire only smoked without burning. That night, they had to huddle in the empty camp, struggling through a tough night. The next morning, unable to sleep, their spirits were low. In the afternoon, Lisa gathered many wild leaves and brought them to camp, while Tom used stones to surround the camp, without discussing it with Lisa. Tom turned the camp into this, angering Lisa once again. Tom said, with his skills, why should he care about others' feelings? While arguing, they suddenly noticed dark clouds approaching fast, and soon it started raining. They could only take shelter in the camp until the rain stopped. On the third day, Lisa was so cold she was scared, approaching very quickly, and soon it began to rain. Overworked and starving, lay motionless, waiting for the rain to stop. On the third day, Lisa was so cold she felt terrified and began missing her central air conditioner at home, while Tom, overworked and starving, lay motionless. For the next 4 days, heavy rain didn't stop, and the temperature dropped sharply, making it impossible for them to leave their camp. By the 7th day, the persistent rain almost drained Tom's will to survive. Lisa sensed something bad was coming and began worrying about what she would do if Tom gave up. On the 9th day, Tom just lay still, doing nothing, making Lisa gradually feel irritated. But not wanting to survive alone, she went out to find food by herself. Lisa found some small insects in the soil, roasted them over the fire, and ate them. By dusk, heavy rain poured down again, forcing the two to endure another freezing night. On the 11th day, Lisa suggested going up the mountain to see if they could find more food. Tom, not far from camp, peeled a lot of birch bark from a tree, planning to use it to waterproof the camp's roof. That entire day, they were busy preparing and finally finished. On the 12th day of the Wilderness Survival Challenge, the lack of food nearly exhausted their physical strength. Tom used the bark to quickly craft a fish trap and threw it into the water. For the next 2 days, both were busy setting various traps around the camp. On the 15th day, a fierce windstorm struck again, and by the 17th day, the storm finally stopped. Tom checked the traps but found nothing, leaving both extremely disappointed. After that, Tom covered himself in mud and prepared to climb a tree to hunt birds. He sat there all day, and finally, at dusk, he saw a bird nearby and threw a long spear at it. But because the throw was poor, the bird flew away. Worse still, that afternoon, rain began to fall again. The prolonged rain almost swept the rescue vehicle into the river. On the 20th day, due to the long journey ahead, they began making tools and preparing to bring bark and belongings to leave. They needed to cross a valley and set up camp there, rest overnight, then continue through 4 kilometers of dense forest to reach the evacuation point. Everything was prepared, and the two carried heavy belongings to start climbing the mountain. On the way, thorny bushes caused Tom to cry out in pain, and it took them all day to reach the riverbank. After building a fire and setting up a temporary camp with bark, Lisa, exhausted, saw heavy rain outside and began sobbing uncontrollably. That evening, the temperature dropped so low that both couldn't speak a word. On the final day, with only 4 kilometers left to the evacuation point, they still had to cross a raging stream. Fortunately, the evacuation went smoothly. After crossing the river, they saw the program's convoy arriving to pick them up. Tom and Lisa successfully completed the 21-day challenge. During the grueling 3 weeks with almost no food, Tom lost 27 kilograms, and Lisa lost 23 kilograms.